June 17th, 1944. Saipan, Northern Mariana Islands. 0430 hours. The sun hasn't risen yet, but the jungle is already awake. A thick wall of humidity hangs over the forward marine positions, heavy enough that you can taste salt and volcanic ash with every breath. Somewhere in the darkness, a lone Japanese Nambu machine gun cracks a burst into the tree line, testing, probing, feeling for the American line. The Marines don't answer. Not yet. Beside a half-finished trench, an M4A3R3 Sherman sits motionless, its engine ticking softly as it cools. Black soot stains the turret from yesterday's push up the ridge. Its nickname, scratched in white chalk beneath the bowgun, reads, Flying Zippo. Inside the cramped hull, Sergeant Bill Janoust wipes condensation off his goggles. The flamethrower fuel tank behind him groans as it settles, metal stretching in the morning heat. Janoust can feel every vibration in his spine. He knows what the Japanese call this machine. The gas coffin. And maybe they're right. One bullet, one lucky mortar fragment, and his world becomes a furnace. But today, that furnace might save a battalion. He taps the steel wall with his knuckles, a ritual before every operation. Wake up, Zippo, he mutters. We've got caves to clean. Out on the ridge above them, Japanese Commander Lieutenant General Yoshitsugu Saito watches through field glasses, unaware that Marines are already maneuvering below his line. The night before, he had laughed with his staff about American flamethrower tanks, bulky, slow, needing too much fuel, too vulnerable to be used in real combat gas tanks on tracks, he scoffed. Shoot one valve and the Americans cook themselves. His officers agreed. To them, the Sherman flamethrower was a joke, a curiosity, a death trap. But they hadn't seen it up close. They hadn't heard the roar. They hadn't watched entire cave complexes, fortified for months, collapse in minutes under a river of burning fuel. Now, at the edge of Saipan's escarpment, Sergeant Janoust hears the whispered signal over the radio. Zippo 1, advance! He pushes his shoulder into the firing mechanism. The Sherman lurches forward, treads grinding volcanic rock to powder as it climbs toward a line of jagged caves carved into the hillside. To the Marines following behind, the tank is more than steel. It's salvation. Those caves hold machine guns, snipers, and mortar pits that can pin down an entire regiment. The infantry can't get close without losing dozens of men, but the flying Zippo can. As they crest the final rise, a sudden flash erupts from the nearest cave, an anti-tank rifle crackling like thunder. The round skips off the Sherman's armor, leaving a glowing scar. Inside the cave, Japanese gunners cheer. They think the tank will stop. They think they've wounded it. They do not understand what's coming. Janoust grabs the turret joystick. His voice is steady, almost calm. On your mark. Stand by. The Marines behind him crouch lower. Some cover their ears. Others simply stare, because there's no way to prepare for the sight of the M4A3R3 in action. Janoust squeezes the trigger. A jet of fire erupts, thick, bright, alive, pouring from the tank's nozzle with a sound like a hurricane made of gasoline. The stream slams into the cave mouth, bends, and then disappears into the darkness inside for 1 second. Nothing. Then the world explodes. A rolling wave of flame gushes back out of the cave with a roar so deep it shakes the ridge. The ground trembles. Hot wind tears across the Marines' faces. Even from 50 yards away, you can feel the heat like an open oven door. Inside the hillside, screams echo and vanish. The mockery dies with them. In his command post, Saito looks up sharply as the orange glow blooms across the escarpment. He lowers his binoculars slowly, realization hitting him like a physical blow. The Americans haven't brought a gas tank. They've brought a weapon designed for the kind of war Japan never imagined it would face. And the flying Zippo is only getting warmed up, because deeper in the island lies a tunnel system even the Japanese fear. And Gnaust's crew has just been ordered to penetrate it.
Flamethrower operators walked into combat knowing that every step could be their last, for the Japanese feared and hated their weapon more than any other. The tanks strapped to their backs, full of pressurized napalm, made them stand out like walking torches. Snipers hunted them relentlessly, machine gunners waited for the slightest movement of a fuel hose, and even ordinary soldiers felt a cold jab of terror when they realized how easily one bullet could ignite their world. Yet these men, often volunteers or those selected for their steadiness under fire, marched forward anyway, praying that their hands would not shake when the moment came to squeeze the trigger. Their mission was as brutal as it was vital. Crawl toward a bunker, a pillbox, or a cave entrance under enemy fire, get close enough, sometimes within 20 feet, to unleash a roaring stream of liquid flame, and hope that the inferno would force the defenders out or silence their guns forever. Every assault felt like creeping toward the open jaws of a beast. Many flamethrower operators described hearing the enemy shouting inside the caves, sometimes taunting them, sometimes crying out in defiance, but always waiting to ambush on Iwo Jima. The terrain amplified that danger. Jagged rocks that sliced hands and knees, volcanic ash that swallowed boots and slowed every movement, and tunnel entrances so small and dark they looked like the island itself was snarling back at them. The Marines protecting the flamethrower men often formed a living shield around them, firing relentlessly to keep Japanese rifles from finding their target. Still, many operators were killed before firing a single burst. Others continued fighting even as their tanks leaked, knowing that a single spark could turn them into human pyres. But when a flamethrower reached its target, the effect was devastating. The roar of flame echoing through the tunnel networks could be heard hundreds of yards away, a sound that haunted survivors long after the battle. The fire sucked oxygen from the chambers, filling them with suffocating heat and smoke. For the Japanese soldiers, many starving, wounded, or already resigned to die, there was no escape. These were not battles fought soldier to soldier in open fields. They were infernos that consumed men hidden in darkness. And yet, as horrifying as the weapon was, Marines often said they felt no triumph in using it. They understood that the Japanese defenders were fighting with unbreakable resolve, following orders never to surrender. Many flamethrower operators admitted later that they saw the weapon not as a tool of destruction, but as the only means to stop the killing of their own comrades. They carried physical fire into those tunnels, but emotional fire stayed with them long after the war was over. As the battle dragged on, the surface of Iwo Jima seemed almost peaceful compared to the horrors unfolding below. Above ground, Marines fought yard by yard through ash and rock, but beneath their boots lay a world that defied imagination, a twisting network of tunnels stretching nearly 18 miles, complete with hospitals, ammo depots, command centers, and living quarters. The Japanese defenders slipped through these underground arteries like specters, appearing suddenly from unexpected firing ports, then vanishing again, leaving Marines confused and exposed. The deeper the Americans pushed into the island, the more they realized that flamethrowers, explosives, and sealing cave entrances were the only solutions. But this strategy turned the battle into something far darker than conventional combat. Once a cave was sealed or set ablaze, the enemy inside had nowhere to go. Many died not by flame, but by suffocation, heat, or collapse. The Marines knew this, and although they pushed on to stay alive themselves, many carried the guilt for years. In official reports, commanders referred to these tactics clinically: neutralizing positions, clearing fortifications, reducing cave systems. But the men on the ground experienced something far more haunting. They remembered the desperate shouts inside the caves, the muffled explosions that told them the tunnel had collapsed, and the silence afterward. Some Marines later admitted that they avoided looking at the entrances once the flames subsided, unable to face what they had done, even though they believed it necessary. The Japanese soldiers, for their part, fought with almost superhuman determination. Some attacked with bayonets and suicidal charges, others sprung from hidden trapdoors to kill flamethrower operators before anyone could react. The more pressure the Marines applied, the more fiercely the defenders clung to their underground strongholds. It became a war fought in shadows and smoke, a deadly chess match where one side wielded fire and the other wielded invisibility. Even after an area was secured, Marines knew the tunnels beneath were still alive with movement, still waiting to erupt. Nothing felt safe. Night brought its own terror as the Japanese launched surprise attacks, slipping from tunnels to kill with grenades or knives before disappearing again. The island felt alive, breathing, shifting, lashing out at the invaders. Marines described the psychological toll as unbearable at times. Sleep was shallow, nerves were constantly frayed, and every crackle of flame or distant rumble made hearts pound. Iwo Jima was not simply a battlefield, it was a crucible that scorched every man who fought upon it.
The fire snakes forward, crawling across the floor like a living thing. 20 yards in, it finds something. A Japanese barricade, sandbags, oil drums, and wooden beams erupts into a rolling inferno. Screams ricochet down the corridor as defenders scramble behind the collapsing position, forced to flee deeper into the warren. But the fire reveals something else. A second steel door closing. A trap inside a trap. Janoust snarls under his breath. They're hurting us. They want us to drown in our own flame. He's right. The Japanese engineers designed these tunnels with airtight chambers to suffocate invaders. Close enough doors, and the Sherman's own fire would consume all available oxygen. A flamethrower tank could die without a single enemy bullet making contact. Rourke looks at the gauge. Fuel, half. Oxygen's dropping, he warns. We've got maybe 10 minutes before the engine starves. But deeper inside the mountain, the Japanese voices are getting more urgent, more frantic. They thought the fire would slow the tank. It hasn't. Instead, the fire is revealing every defensive line they built. Janoust looks ahead, jaw set. We push. We burn through every door they close. And we don't stop until we see daylight. Or we melt this whole fortress from the inside. He floors the accelerator. The Sherman surges forward, smashing through the half-melted barricade. Debris scrapes against the hull. Smoke pours through the vents. The air inside the tank grows hotter, thick enough to sting the eyes and throat. The second steel door slides almost fully shut. Only a narrow wedge of black remains. Janoust rotates the turret and fires. The flame stream hits the edge of the door, splashing upward in a shower of sparks. The superheated metal warps, bends inward, glowing orange. A Marine outside would have been blinded by the glare, but inside the tank, it fills the crew with a savage adrenaline rush. The door buckles. Then it ruptures. The Sherman crashes through the molten gap, treads shrieking against red-hot steel. Inside the shattered chamber, the Japanese defenders stare in disbelief. None of them ever expected the flying Zippo to survive the first door. Certainly not the second. And behind the defenders lies the deepest part of the tunnel system, where hidden ammunition stores, command posts, and underground barracks stretch into the black like arteries. If the tank reaches them, the entire heart of the fortress might ignite. Gnaust wipes sweat from his eyes. "Deep end of the mountain," he mutters. "Let's finish this." Because somewhere ahead, in that darkness, the final and deadliest trap waits. The tunnel widens. Not much, just enough for the Sherman to move without scraping both walls, but in the suffocating dark, it feels like entering the throat of some huge animal, one preparing to swallow the tank whole behind them. The collapsed steel doors glow like dying suns. Ahead, only blackness remains, broken by occasional flickers, shadows shifting, shapes darting, the glint of metal quickly withdrawn. The Japanese defenders aren't firing now. They're waiting. Gnaust feels it in his bones. "They're regrouping," he whispers. Rourke swallows hard. "Or baiting us." Both are true. The flying Zippo rumbles deeper, engine gasping in the thinning air. Every breath inside the tank tastes of hot oil and scorched rubber. The temperature has climbed high enough that the crew's sweat evaporates almost instantly, leaving salt crusted on their uniforms. But then, a faint, rhythmic pounding, not boots, machinery, generators. The heart of the tunnel network lies ahead. A command post, an armory, maybe a hospital. And if intelligence was right, the largest ammunition stockpile anywhere on Saipan. Rourke's voice cracks. "Bill, if we ignite that," Gnaust cuts him off. "We're not here to blow the mountain. We're here to break their spine." The tank creeps forward, turret slowly scanning. The walls are reinforced now, smooth concrete replacing natural stone. Overhead vents choked with soot suggest the Japanese tried and failed to install proper airflow A sign. They never expected fire to reach this far. Then the tunnel bends sharply left, and the flying Zippo enters a cavern the size of a warehouse. Rows of wooden bunks stretch out like skeletal ribs. Tables overturned, papers scattered, helmets and rifles abandoned in mid-run. The Japanese evacuated this space minutes ago, maybe seconds. A radio still crackles on a desk, broadcasting clipped orders in a panic. But what freezes the crew's blood isn't the evacuation. It's the doorway on the far wall, a massive double door, reinforced with steel beams nearly a foot thick. And above it, painted in white kanji, Bing-Chi-Ku, Armory. Rourke exhales. Oh, God. Gnaust stares at the door. Behind it lies enough ammunition to keep a battalion fighting for weeks. Mortars, grenades, rifle rounds, demolition charges. If the flamethrower fuel ignites even a fraction of it, the mountain could collapse. And yet, in the darkness beneath the door, movement, shadows, dozens of them. Japanese troops kneeling behind barricades made of crates and sandbags, rifles fixed on the tank. They were waiting for the Sherman to enter the cavern, waiting to kill it where the roof is lowest, where debris would trap them forever. A perfect kill zone, one they built for this exact moment. Gnaust clenches the firing lever. "They want us to hold back." Rourke nods, almost whispering. "Because they think we won't risk the armory." A beat of silence. Then Gnaust's voice, steady as steel. "They're wrong." He yanks the lever. The flamethrower detonates forward in a screaming arc, hitting the barricades head-on. Crates explode into burning splinters. Fuel blossoms across the cavern floor, rolling like a tidal wave of fire. The kneeling soldiers vanish behind curtains of flame that climb the walls and lick the ceiling. The heat convulses through the chamber. Smoke churns upward. The armory door glows faintly red at the seams. Rourke stares in horror. "We'll ignite the stockpile!" But something else happens first. From behind the armory door, a deep, booming sound, a chain falling, a bar sliding, a latch releasing. The Japanese inside are trying to open the door. Why? To save the ammunition? To escape? Gnaust knows the truth before anyone says it. They're going to rush us. Suicide charge. The roar of shifting steel confirms it. The door begins to rise, not fully, just enough to reveal boots, then legs, then bayonets. A wall of soldiers pours out, screaming, shadows dancing behind them from the inferno spreading across the cavern. Rourke grips his sidearm by reflex. "Bill, what do we do?" Gnaust doesn't blink. He whispers a single word. "Burn." He pulls the lever again, and the flying Zippo unleashes the longest, hottest stream it's fired all day. An unbroken jet that turns the charging line into a blinding silhouette of flame and smoke. The rising armory door warps inward, buckling under the heat. Inside, shadows begin to move again. Not soldiers, not ammunition stacks. Something larger, a final trap. One the Japanese intended to unleash only if every other defense failed. Gnaust leans forward, eyes narrowing. What the hell is that? The molten armory door shudders, then groans inward as something slams against it from the other side. Not men, not a suicide squad. Something heavier. The crew freezes. Rourke whispers, "Bill, that's not infantry." Before Gnaust can answer, another impact rocks the steel slab, hard enough to send dust cascading from the cavern ceiling. The metal bulges outward like the ribs of a dying animal. Then they hear it. A grinding thrum of engines. Multiple engines. Gnaust's eyes widen. They're moving equipment. The realization hits like a gut punch. The Japanese aren't opening the armory to evacuate. They're trying to push something out. Something tracked. Something armored. Rourke stammers, "They wouldn't. Not in a tunnel this tight." "They would if their entire fortress is collapsing." Gnaust growls. The next crash confirms it. The entire armory door, red-hot, sagging, quivering, slams outward as a vehicle smashes through the lower half. Sparks erupt as steel tears like paper. And then it appears. A hulking silhouette, barely fitting through the opening, its armor scorched, its machine gun already spitting tracers. A Japanese Type 97 Chiha medium tank. Inside a mountain. Inside the armory. Someone, some desperate, brilliant, terrified officer, decided the only way to stop the flying Zippo was to ram a tank straight into the cavern and finish the fight at point-blank range. The Chiha roars forward, treads grinding through burning debris, its turret rotating toward the Sherman. Flames dance along its hull, fuel from Gnaust's earlier blast dripping like liquid fire. Rourke screams, "They're gonna fire!" But Gnaust is already moving. He floors the accelerator. The Sherman lurches straight toward the Japanese tank, engine choking on the thinning air, but refusing to die. The cavern vibrates as both machines close the distance like charging bulls. 50 feet, 30, 20. The Chiha fires. A blinding flash, a deafening boom. A shell slams into the Sherman's front slope, ricocheting upward in a shower of sparks. The impact shakes the entire crew, knocking Rourke against the hull hard enough to bruise ribs. "Armor held!" he gasps. "We're still here!" The Chiha loads another round. Gnaust doesn't give them the chance. He swings the turret and fires the flamethrower at point-blank range.